All right, so this analysis on AUDJPY is probably going to suck, but I'm going to try my best. I'll tell you this very quickly before I get into it, is that is exactly what this is, an analysis. It doesn't mean that there's an entry. It doesn't mean that there's an opportunity. It means that I'm interested in looking at a potential of something happening on AUDJPY, and I'm going to try to explain why very briefly, but it might suck, right? It might suck. I might be wrong as well as I might be right. I'll tell you this. No trader knows what the market is going to do, and if they do, they are probably up to something illegal. So I'm just going to try the best that I can. So first things first, I want to take a look at AUDJPY, and I'll just zoom out all the way on the 50-minute time frame, and just by looking at the last, say, about a month of data on the 15-minute time frame, I can say that AUDJPY is in a range. But looking at the last week plus of data, it's actually bullish. Now, this is what is being, highlighted to me right now, the fact that it's bullish and it's in somewhat of the middle of the range, meaning that it can go to the previous high. Why do I believe it can go to the previous high? Because what is up here? There are traders who are selling up here. There are traders with buy stops up here, meaning there's liquidity up here. All right? It makes sense that, if this were a reversal, it makes sense that AUDJPY most likely would not try to come back up again to give traders another opportunity to sell. So for me, I think it makes sense that if it is going to go up, it is going to get to this area and possibly even break this area. I can be wrong about that, and that's fine. That's part of one being a trader and part of producing an analysis. We don't know what is going to happen. The whole idea is I'm trying to find the rules and criteria that align with my bias and analysis to possibly give me an entry to buy. Now, I can't just say using the 50-minute time frame alone right here to explain to you that it's going to buy, because this is not enough information that you will need to understand what I'm seeing. So I'm going to say I'm going to go to the daily. And on the daily time frame, if you really look at it, since the 20th of March all the way to present, that's 2020, yeah? The 20th of March all the way to present day, AUDJPY has been a bull market. So it means to say, if you understand anything about what I do, it means to say that you don't go against momentum unless the reversal is clear. If we're looking at this now, we know that if AUDJPY is to reverse, it makes sense that it reverse off of this area, right? That at the very least makes sense to me, because what is up at this area? There are sellers up at this area right here, and then there are also buy stops above this area. So we know that there's a massive amount of liquidity here as well. Cool, that's good. If we're also looking at AUDJPY in this area, there's rejection to the downside, and it has already taken out sellers, right, who had sell stops below this area, and it's actually captured buyers as well, who would have had buys off of this area, hit their stop losses, which would be where the sellers are. So it's now back in a bull market, already stopping out more or less everybody who, thought that they had the direction correct. Also, if we're looking at it, AUDJPY is in an accumulation range, as I would have mentioned, over the course of a month. Right now, we see that on the 15-minute time frame. If you zoom out, you can see that accumulation range denoted by this, right? Cool. So I'm going to remove, the drawing just a little bit, just to kind of give you a better, just to not confuse you, right? But based on what I'm seeing, if I were to make an assumption, right? Because that's what real trading is. It's an assumption, right? If I were to make an assumption, this is actually a break and retest as well. It's a break of this zone here, and it's retesting this zone. So the fact of the matter, based on what I'm seeing, is it's overall bullish. It's and that overall bullish is this here, right? It's currently bullish, having rejected the downside and showing me signs that it might want to go to the upside. Let's go to the forward time frame. On the forward time frame, you can see some accumulation, and it's going into this somewhat of a wedge shape, right? And we know that traders oftentimes try to treat these wedges as whatever direction it breaks out to, that is the direction they trade in, blah, 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 right? Cool. No problem. So we're looking at that as a wedge. And then when you go down on the 1 minute as well, what I am actually thinking, not the 1 minute, sorry, the 1 hour, what I'm actually thinking is it could possibly break down, right? Break down, maybe, just maybe, to say this area, break below this area, right? To capture that last bit of liquidity and then push up. Sorry, let me draw that over. Let me draw this over. So to capture that last bit of liquidity, right, of the buyers of this area, because there are going to be buyers buying off of this area, and then they're going to be, their stop losses are going to be right below, and then they're going to be sellers with sell stops thinking that this is at an ultimate high, so that it's going to sell. So it makes sense, in my opinion, for the dealer to drive price down to this area, capture those orders, and then push the market up. So if we come down to the 15-minute time frame now, it makes more sense why I'm prioritizing this area as a potential for a stop hunt, right? Now, people I know might be asking, so it might stop hunt and then go to this area. What if it just drops? Then if it just drops, then there's no opportunity, right? So what I'll do in this case is I might even decide to put an alert, right? Not a support or anything like that. I want to see price actually come into this area, break this area, stop hunt these people, and come right back up. Because if anytime I know that it does this, I know that my bias, which is overall bulls, is being confirmed. You see, something a lot of people don't understand is when you have momentum coupled with rejection opposing your momentum, that's good. In other words, if you have bullish momentum and then bearish rejection, that's a good sign. Because what it's saying is the bulls are in control and the bears are being rejected. I always want you to think about how a market would be a constant fight between the bulls and the bears, right? Whether it's an algorithm, whether it's banks, whether it's liquidity providers, market makers, whoever, it is always a constant battle between the buyers and the sellers, the bears and the bulls. So if you have the bulls winning and then on top of them winning, they add an insult to injury by virtue of creating that rejection to the bears, that's a very good sign for buys. So for me, this is what I'm anticipating. I think it makes sense. Let me draw this a little better. I think it makes sense that it could try to possibly break down and then come straight back up, right? And once it comes back up, the area that I am going to be interested in placing the buy would be somewhere off of a momentum-based move, which would be somewhere in here, right? And it would be closer to the down or to the bottom of the move. Because obviously, if you get it up here, it's a likelihood that it could come back down, it could accumulate, it could drop, it could do all kinds of things. But if you can get in down here, you're a lot safer. So for me, that's what I'm thinking on AUDJPY. Like I said, the analysis might suck as well as it mightn't. But any trader who says that an analysis sucks, right? I agree. Maybe it does. That's just the harsh reality of being a trader. Sometimes your analysis is going to suck. Sometimes you're not going to get it right. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do the things that you want to do by virtue of entering the trade that you want to enter. Sometimes you're not going to get the things that you want to see. And that's completely okay. Because that's what being a trader is about. Yeah?